Okay, so I'm a performance analyst, so I work with a number of the inter-county teams, and I also do a lot of the in-house analysis here in the Games Development Department for Croke Park, and that's a lot of what my research or the numbers I'm presenting here today are based on. But just to give a very brief outline of what an analyst actually means, because there's all sorts of terms that get thrown around in terms of stats man and video man, and Pat Spillane has other terms for these people as well. But in general, it's sort of three main roles that I would fulfill or an analyst would fulfill, and that's whether you work at a club level or a senior inter-county level, it doesn't matter. So that's the game day analysis. So that's where I would, on a day with pen and paper, with an app, with software, whatever it is, you record the key actions that are happening during the game, and you try and feed that back during the course of the game, so the manager can make better informed decisions. The other big part of what I would do is in terms of post-game reports. So that's where I take the video, link it with the stats, and produce a report that shows where the game was won or lost, but also being able to link that with the video. So previously, a lot of what would have happened is that video would have been shown on Tuesday night at a presentation, where now that video now has been pushed a lot more to online, so the players are watching the video well before they ever get to training on a Tuesday. And the third bit is in terms of opposition scouting. Okay, more traditional means than what some teams tried this year, but in general it's trying to build up a profile of what the opposition look like, who are their key players, what are their tendencies, what foot do they prefer to use when they shoot, and those type of things. So again, the same role is fulfilled whether you work at inter-county level or club level, you can still do a lot of these things. If you want a slightly extended version of these notes, by the way, you can go to that, thevideoanalyst.com/GAA, and I have the notes there, you can download them rather than write everything down. So there's often a lot of talk about the holy grail of stats, that this week it's turnovers and next week it's kickouts and then it's possession and then it's something else. I've analysed over 200 football games now over the last 3 or 4 years, and I can tell you there is no holy grail. There's no one stat that beats them all. It's not a case whether you get 10 turnovers more than the opposition, you win the game. It's just not that simple. And you can see that just in the styles of play. So Donegal's key performance indicators will be different to Dublin's. Okay? And it's important that your indicators are tailored to the team you work with, both at the level, whether it's underage and it's senior, but even in terms of your playing style. So there isn't one stat that rules them all. I think that's important. Also, the point I want to make here is just in terms of these will be my building blocks. Okay? So these will be the 6 headline key performance indicators that I would collect. And again, I would collect them and I would recommend anybody here, regardless of the level you work at, the only thing that changes is the more detail you can go into. Okay? I don't have time to discuss them all now, but just to give you the sort of headline ones that I look at a lot, in terms of attacks and shots. So the attacks are the number of times where we inside the 45, the opponent's 45, and how many shots did we get off, regardless of whether they're scored or not for the moment. Just looking at that ratio. At senior inter-county level, you're looking at that to be about 80%. So 80% of the time that you're in the opponent's 45, you should be looking to get a shot off. Okay? And it's a very simple metric to keep. It's just when you cross the line with possession and how many shots did you get off. Okay? And it's very easy to keep, and I think it's a very important indicator of how well you've performed. The other thing is if you flip that on its head and you look at it from a defensive point of view, you can then see, are we allowing the opposition get more shots off than they should for each attack that they've had? Okay? Very simple to collect, but can be very powerful. The other one is in terms of shots to scores. So what is the percentage that our forwards are returning? Okay? Now, if you leave from free aside for the moment, and this was something that I found sort of staggering at the time, was at senior inter-county level, the average return from a shot from play is 44%. So 56% of shots at senior inter-county level are missed from play. Okay? That's important for 2 reasons. One, it's important to know because you probably want to improve it. But second, when you guys all go out and monitor your team or your forwards, are you setting unrealistic benchmarks to pitch them against? Because at inter-county level, a good forward is 50% return from play. Now, you have your James O'Donoghues and your Cillian O'Connors who will be way above that, but an average inter-county footballer is scoring at worse than 50%. So it's important that you have that figure in mind if you're trying to monitor the under-15s or the minor team or anything like that, that you look at the area and you benchmark them accordingly. So as part of the research that I do through here, this is one of the things that I was able to do. So this is what 9,000 shots looks like broken down into all sorts of different zones, okay? Now this is, I'll show you a much easier way to do this, but basically the dark green is where we get the best return, okay? So it shows us around here, inside that D is where we're getting the best return in terms of our shots, okay? Now that's quite a complicated graphic, but if we break it down and look at it in a much easier format, and we just look at 3 simple zones, so close, mid, and long range, okay? And we look at the return that we get in each area, okay? So from play, 54%, 39%, 28%. So it's quite clear that all other factors aside, just where we take the shot from has a big indication of whether it's going to go over or not, okay? And again, I think this is something very simple. You can print this image out on a piece of paper, give it to a parent, give it to an assistant coach, selector, whatever it is, and simply record where your shots are coming from, okay? Are we getting enough in the mid or close range, or are they all too far out, okay? A very simple key performance indicator, but it can show where you're getting your scores from or why the return is so low. And often that's what analysis does. It doesn't necessarily answer the question for you, but it does propose where the problem might be. So in the inter-county teams that I would work with, this would be one of the key metrics that I would look at. So if the forwards return is 45%, 30%, 35%, whatever it is, we'll go back and look at something very simple like this and say, well, where are we getting our shots from? Are we taking enough of them in the close range? And likewise, if we flip that on its side and we look at the opponents, are we giving up too many shots in the close range? Okay? The other thing I want to look at is in terms of from free. And for me, cynical fouling or otherwise, it makes no sense at all, unless there's some sort of clear goal scoring chance. It makes no sense at all to commit a foul in that close range. Okay? 92% of frees in that close range go over the bar. Okay? So at all costs, if you just stood aside and let them shoot, they score at 54%. Okay? Now, not an extreme example, but if you look at it and the way some teams defend, like it or not, they defend with all their lives this 30-metre zone because they know the shot return from outside it. And the other thing they couple it with is they don't commit a foul inside that close range. Okay? And it's all about just shifting the numbers slightly in your favour. You're never going to get it 100% right. You're never not going to commit a foul or anything like that. But just being able to have these figures, and as I said, it's not a complicated thing. You don't need any technology or anything to record something like this. And then you're just able to benchmark your performance and say, well, where do we need to make improvements? How do we work on getting the ball closer in when we're taking our shots? Okay? It's a very quick presentation, but it's just an idea of some of the research that's going on in the background and possibly to give you some idea of the figures that are involved so you're able to benchmark it with your team. And as I said, there's slightly more information on that website if you want to delve any deeper, and you'll find my contact details and all that there. Thank you very much.